Yes, thank you for the introduction, Lucy. My name is Gavin Biggs. I'm the author of a number of books and series. The Thinking Train series, I'm a co-author for the Thinking Train series. I've written 14 stories out of the 24 the Thinking Train primary readers series. Hello, Albania. I'm also the author of the secondary level maze adventures stories for the classroom. Hello, Mexico. And today I'm very excited to talk about the garden myth. Now, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful English teachers of the world, has anyone heard of the garden myth? The correct answer is no, you haven't heard of the garden myth because I came up with the garden myth. The garden myth is my myth, which is hopefully why you're here, so I can tell you about it. The garden myth is something that I discovered from my teaching and from listening to lots and lots of teacher trainers and speaking to lots and lots of educational professionals around the world. Lots of educators, they talk about they use these quotes. I always see these quotes that are trying to inspire teachers. And they're things like this. If you have a little look at this quote, teachers who inspire know that teaching is like cultivating a garden, and those who would have nothing to do with thorns must never attempt to gather flowers. Very deep and very meaningful. But I disagree. I disagree completely with this. I think this is a lie. I don't think that we are gardeners. And then I see things like this from educators. I don't know, excuse me, I don't know who Andrew Miller is. I'm sure he's a very nice man. But there is a quote that says this: teachers create the conditions for success just as gardeners do. Teachers create the conditions for success just as gardeners do. And again, I disagree completely. I don't think it is the teacher's job to create all the conditions for our students' success. Our students, we want our students to be independent learners. I don't think we are responsible for everything. People seem to think that teaching is like this. People seem to think that teaching is all happy, smiling, very happy, smiling students that want to learn every day. Happy, smiling teachers. A question for you all. Do you all like teaching? Yeah, mixed messages, but no, not every day. It's a job. It's a hard job. It's a very, very hard job. And students aren't always, I know this is crazy, but students don't always want to learn English. English is not necessarily their priority, right? So it's not as simple as people seem to think. In fact, when I was teaching full time, my teaching life felt a lot like this. I don't know if you agree, but when I was a teacher, I felt like this. I was surrounded by the sharks of tests. Number one, assessment, assessment, assessment. Parents, when I was working for a private school, parents were a nightmare. They're always asking me how many words their daughter, their son should learn each week, pressuring me to push to do more for their students, for their children. The boss. Now, I am sure you all have the perfect boss. I'm sure everybody in this virtual room loves their boss, but sometimes bosses can be a problem. Students can be very, very hard work. And of course, more recently we have an extra shark in the room, which is the Zoom class. The Zoom class. Oh, admin work is also a very, very big class. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, that the role of a teacher isn't just, we are not gardeners, we're not responsible for every part of our students' success because we have a lot of pressure. And actually, the truth is, now I don't know in your country, But I will tell you that for England, in 2016, 40,000 teachers quit. Now, this isn't just English language teaching, this is all teachers. 40,000 teachers quit in 2016, which is unbelievable. If you would like to be a teacher in England, you are welcome. Not that we can travel, but 20% of teacher training places in England are empty. This is a huge problem, and the future doesn't look much better. Next year, we expect 1 in 5 teachers to leave. By 2025, we expect 2 in 5 teachers, school leaders and staff to leave. And this is absolutely awful. Now, why do people leave? Actually, kind of, as you say, out of control workload pressures and excessive accountability. I don't know if you agree, but for most teachers, admin, workload pressures and accountability are a huge problem. But we don't talk about this. No one seems to be talking about this. Most, excuse me, most training sessions that I go to are all about vocabulary, assessment, exams, stories, which is fine. But we don't talk about the real world. Technology is another one. There is a lot of research going on right now about just how many people are leaving the education profession. And it's very, very worrying. But I'm here to say I understand. Because I feel, and you can argue with me, please argue with me. I like it when people disagree with me. Half the time I feel that I'm not a language teacher anymore. I'm more of an assessment guide. I'm not helping people learn, I'm helping people pass tests. And that's not what I want to do. That's one of the reasons I stopped teaching and started focusing on materials. And more importantly, writing stories, which I love more than anything. So the purpose of today, and we have 51 minutes of excitement and joy. So I hope you're ready. This is what I want to talk about really today. Philosophy of teaching. Okay, now the philosophy of teaching. Does anyone know who this is? Does anyone know who this man is? If you know, I will give you 50 internet points. Have you heard of the greatest teacher in the world competition? Well, not really a competition, a prize. The greatest teacher in the world. Every year, somebody is put forward to be considered to be the greatest teacher in the world. And Peter Tabichi from Kenya won the Global Teacher Prize last year. Now, ladies and gentlemen, do you think you could be the greatest teacher in the world? We have 150 teachers from all over the world right now, all together in one virtual room. Do any of you think you could be the greatest teacher in the world? Yes, I like your confidence. Yeah, why not? Why not? Anything can happen, right? There is a prize. There's a prize of $1 million. Now you know the prize of $1 million. Would you like to be the greatest teacher in the world now? Obviously, we don't teach for the money. We don't do it for the money. We do it for the love of education. Exactly. Okay, some people do it for the money. If you're doing it for the money, we might be in the wrong job. Anyway, so he was obviously interviewed. Peter was interviewed, and he said this, okay? He said, seeing my learners grow in knowledge, skills, and confidence is my greatest joy in teaching. I agree with that. When they become resilient, creative, and productive in society, I get a lot of satisfaction. I agree with that. I act as their greatest destiny enabler and key that unlocks their potential in the most exciting manner. That I disagree with. And this is the point of the garden myth. We as teachers should not be expected to be the key that unlocks students' potential. Okay? There is too much pressure on teachers to unlock our students' potential. Our goal, I think, and again, please disagree, tell me if you disagree. I think our goal should be a lot simpler. That's what I'm talking about today. And it starts with creativity. So. Before we can talk about creativity and storytelling and how to get, well, how to have simpler goals in the classroom, I would like to ask this to you wonderful, wonderful teachers. Who is the greatest, most famous English writer? How did I guess what you were going to say? Shakespeare, 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 William Shakespeare, Shakespeare. Edgar Allan Poe, interesting. Dickens, Terry Pratchett. Karen, you're my favorite person. Arthur Conan Doyle, yeah, okay. If you're going to ask me, yeah, Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman, Chaucer, Oscar Wilde, 100% Oscar Wilde, yeah. I'm not a big fan of Jane Austen. Agatha Christie is the best mystery writer in the world. She is better than Arthur Conan Doyle. Byron, Bronte sisters, yeah. Okay, everyone seems to think, and I kind of agree, the most famous has to be the handsome William Shakespeare. Interesting fact, if I grew my hair long, I would look quite a lot like Shakespeare. But my J.K. Rowling, interesting. My question is this. Language and vocabulary. How many words did Shakespeare know? How many words did Shakespeare know? This will all make sense very, very soon. A lot is the correct answer, Hilda. More than, yeah. Well, you never know. Yes, someone's correct. 400,000 is a little bit. He did invent quite a lot. Plenty is also correct. I don't know is a perfectly good answer. We've studied this, and the answer is about 20,000 words. 20,000 words, okay? We've studied his portfolio and language used at that time. So his vocabulary is about 20,000. What about me? I'm an educated native English speaker. What's my vocabulary? Be kind to me. I'm a sensitive man. 100,000. Ibrahim, you're my new favorite person. 5,000. I'm not impressed. You think I have a language? Who said 5,000? I'm a writer. Yeah, my vocabulary is at least 30,000, or more like 38,000. You can go online. There's a website I think is called something like Test Your Vocabulary. You're forgiven, Hilda. You can go online and test your vocabulary, but my active vocabulary is actually about 38,000 words, give or take. But then again, I'm a writer, it's supposed to be. So what does this mean? Well, obviously, it means that my English is better than Shakespeare's. At which point you will say, no, no, no. And it's of course, it's not true. Vocabulary and language ability are very, very different things, because we're talking about, in modern teaching, we're focusing on effective communication. It's not about how many words we know, but it's about what words we know and what we do with words. This is the key thing, okay? This is very, very, very important for encouraging creativity in the classroom. So we have to study a little bit. We have to go back and look at vocabulary, because this is really, really important, especially when we think about how much time we have in class. So if we have a look at this table. Now these are the top 50 most frequently used words in American spoken English. Have a look at this. Oh, Carla, the website, it used to be called Test Your Vocabulary. Okay, so top 50 most frequently used words by American speakers. I and the, you, to, that, it, of, yena, when, like, they, have, so, was, but, is, it's, we, just, oh, do, don't, that's, well, for, what, on, think, right, not, all, might be, really, with, he, one, now, this, there, I'm, all, if, no. Is there anything you notice about this? I mean, these are the top 50 most frequently used words. So we have to teach all, every student should know all these words. They're all very short words. Yeah. I will give you a clue. I and you are very, very popular. Not because Americans only talk about themselves, but because this is a spoken language database. There are no nouns, a couple of verbs. We have non-words. So we have the fifth most commonly used word in America is or I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Then we have Do you teach your students Most teachers don't. Most teachers don't teach these words. But if we're looking at real spoken language, this is the language that English speakers use. We have to teach these words. I mean, in some languages, we already have them. In other languages, in English, we have to know these. We have to use them correctly. Is very, very useful. I used to use a lot. A teacher would ask me, Gavin, have you done your homework? And I would say, no. The other things, of course, know, well, think, which are part of 5-word chunks. I'm sure you're familiar with 5-word chunks. Things like, you know what I mean, well, I think that, or well, I think that. It's 4 words. 5-word chunks are also very, very, very common. So this is the kind of, we have to look at natural language. Now, textbooks don't always include natural and good textbooks in the listening comprehension, the dialogues. They should have natural language. You should have yeah, oh. But not all do. Stories, on the other hand, will always have these, will always have natural language. Now, when we look at developing our vocabulary, the next question is, of course, how many words should students learn? More importantly, what percentage of words in a reading text do you need to know to understand the text completely? Okay. Finally, how many words gives you that percentage? How many words should students learn? What percentage of words in a text do you need to know to understand the text? And how many words give you that percentage? Well, I will tell you. Because this is very, very, very important. Here is a wonderful graph. 100 words. There are 100 frequently used words that are used 50% of the time. Okay. If we go up to 5,000 words, then we're looking at 93% coverage. 93% sounds pretty good. The problem is, once you get above 5,000 words, suddenly the amount of coverage is decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. So you can study another 5,000 words, but you'll only improve your vocabulary coverage by 0.2%, which is very, very interesting because the goal, now someone was saying 70 to 80%, 90% at least. Actually, from the research, below 80%, we cannot understand a text, okay? Below 80%. So, just to remind you, below 80%, if you have a vocabulary of less than 1,000 words, you will not be able to understand most reading texts, okay? 95%. 95% coverage is the goal for future learning. 95% coverage is the point at which learners can read without a dictionary. Now, if you remember, 95% is 8,000 words. How many classes? Well, this is a very good point, actually, ladies and gentlemen. How much time do you have with your students every week? How many hours do you have each week? Eight hours, wow, that's a lot. Okay, 1 or 2, 7, okay, a big mix, 25, wow. 5 hours a week, 2 hours, 3 times a week. So if you've got, a few hours a week with your students, how many new words can you teach in a week? I know it depends on the age of the students. Primary students, you're looking at, less than 8 words. Secondary students, 12 to maybe 14, about 30, that's quite a lot. 30 words a week. So let's say if you're teaching 30 words a week for 30 weeks, okay? 30 words a week for 30 weeks, what's that, 900 words? So you're looking at a good 9 years of study, right? At 30 words a week for 30 weeks. This is very, very important because the next question is, of course, what does it mean to teach a word, right? Now, generally, we would trust our textbooks to cover all the kind of different uses of a word. Yes, very good point, Carla. Many words are forgotten, which is why, again, we trust our textbooks to recycle the language. All textbooks should show recycling of previous vocabulary. But we can't control that. And we don't have that much time. And we are not gardeners. We're not responsible for all the conditions of our students' success. Now, when we say to know a word, to understand a word, actually there are specific categories, okay? There are specific categories. Now, what's most important, that's the interesting thing. There are areas of importance for understanding vocabulary. I'm sure everybody will start a new unit in a book. You'll have the picture or a story. You'll have all the vocabulary. You'll practice listening to the vocabulary, pointing to the words, maybe a number exercise, a matching or a gap fill exercise, reading comprehension. All these things are important. But there are officially 10 categories, okay? So normally we will start from green to red. So to understand a word is, the first skill is receptive. I say the word, you know what it means. Conceptual is you can see the word or hear the word, you know what it means. Memory recall, that you can remember the word yourself if you read it out of context. Then we look at how it sounds, then we look at the grammar, then we look at the spelling. And these are generally split into textbooks. In school, we focus on the left-hand side, okay? So again, I'm sure you know this, but when we teach language in school, we're looking at these main meanings of a word. But for real life, then we need to think about the collocation. You know, what words does it go with? Phrasal verb, take a photo. Situational use, you know, do we use that phrase in that situation? Does that phrase have another meaning? Bread, for example, has lots of different meanings. It's a food and it's money. Metalinguistic, what are the different parts of the word? Now, the most important part of this is we don't have much time, but reading, when it comes to reading a book, we don't need all of these. In order to enjoy reading a story, we only need these 3. We only need students to be able to receive the word, to understand what the word means, and to remember it when they see it again. They don't have to know how it's spelt. They don't have to know the grammar. All the other things, the sound, the grammar, the spelling, situational, the connotational, these are all presented in context naturally. Students learn these in the story without being taught them. Now, this saves us a phenomenal amount of time. And again, one of the reasons why reading for pleasure in a foreign language is the best thing to do. All the research points to this, but we don't always do it. We don't always do it. Now, there are lots of studies that show, and I love my research. There was a really interesting study a few years ago called Scholarly Culture, How Books in Adolescence Enhance Adult Literacy, Numeracy, and Technology. And this was across 31 different countries. And you might remember at the beginning, I mentioned Estonia, because Estonia was in this study. Now, this study looked at a simple thing. It looked at how many books were in students' homes. How many books were in the home? And this is, I'll give you some time to read this. It's a little bit complicated. I'll read it to you. Immersing children in book-oriented environments benefits their later educational achievement, attainment, and occupational standing. These findings have been interpreted as suggesting that book-oriented socialization, indicated by home library size, equips youth with lifelong tastes, skills, and knowledge. Teenagers, and this is the really interesting part here. Teenagers with only secondary education, teenagers who only went to secondary education, but who came from a home filled with books, became as literate, numerate, and technologically apt in adulthood as university graduates who grew up with only a few books. The power of books in the home is remarkable. And in this study, they worked it out to be something like a minimum of 80 books. 80 to 350 had the biggest effect. Above 350, a small effect. Below 80, a big negative effect. Now, the countries with the most number of books in the home, I think, were Estonia and Finland. England was somewhere in the middle. Turkey, I'm sorry to say, was quite low down. Mexico, I don't know. Ecuador, I'm sorry, I don't know. But do look at this study if you're interested. I don't know. Teachers of the world, do you find this interesting? Please say yes, or I might cry. Thank you very much. I feel so much better. Home libraries, yeah, as an Estonian, exactly. Yeah, home libraries are such a simple and easy thing to do, and they always help. Now, of course, we are language teachers, and there are also the main kind of research is obviously on reading in a foreign language. That's what we're here to. This is perhaps the most famous book on extensive reading, called Extensive Reading Activities, from Bamford and Day, published by Cambridge. Good things happen to students who read a great deal in the new language. Research studies show they become better and more confident speakers, they write better, but their listening and speaking abilities improve, their vocabularies get richer. In addition, they develop positive attitudes toward and increased motivation to study new language. Reading for pleasure in a foreign language improves listening and speaking. Now that's remarkable, that you can sit, read a book, and your speaking improves. It's hard to believe, I know, but we must remember that the mental process of reading a book, we live those stories. We care about those characters, and this is very, very important. So, reading for pleasure. Another question to you all. Does anybody in this room, virtual room, do any of you do silent reading in the classroom? Do any of you sit with a book, your own book? Do any of you sit with a book in class and all your students sit with a book and you read quietly together? Why the emphasis in pleasure reading? Because basically students reading for homework don't show the same effect. Time. I wish there was no time. But this is the thing. This is what I hear from teachers all over the world, wherever I go. They say, I don't have time to sit down in class and read a book with my students. But sitting down and reading a book for 5 minutes is the best way to improve students' language. And it depends on the age of the students. Primary students, yes, you can listen more to them. There's always time. There should be time. But we need to change the way we think a little bit. It's the best thing we can do, so why don't we do it more? Why don't we do it? Sometimes it's education. We have to educate the school directors and say this is teaching. Now here we come on to the perfect link. This is written by, actually, if you can guess who wrote this, unless you've seen me before, I will be very, very impressed. When second language acquirers read for pleasure, they can continue to improve in their second language without class, without teachers, without study, and even without people to converse with. Do you agree? Beautiful teachers of the world, do you agree? Can our students improve without us? Does the world need teachers? Different questions, I know. Interesting. Teachers are definitely needed, yes. But see, this is my point, that I would say that the teachers are not responsible for the conditions of success. They are responsible for encouraging students to learn on their own. Okay, interesting. Now, for this, I agree with it nearly. The only thing I don't agree with is the people to converse with. You always need people to speak to learn, the real language. I see people raising their hands, but I'm not going to check that yet. Okay, quote number 2 from the same author. When teachers are reading to students and when teachers are relaxing with a good book during sustained silent reading, teachers are doing their jobs. Oh, really? That's fantastic. Libraries, I was going to talk about libraries later, actually. But every school should have a library. Combining a library with a community library is one of the best things any school can do. Please tell me what happens. Personally, I'm interested in any story, anything to do with encouraging reading. If any teacher has any stories about encouraging reading, setting up libraries, community or school libraries, please let me know. You can contact Helbling and they'll contact me. So, when teachers are reading to students, when teachers are relaxing with a good book, teachers are doing their jobs. The question is, do you think other people think this is true? I hope so. If you're interested in more, this was written by the very well-known Stephen Krashen in a book called The Power of Reading, which again is very, very important for any teacher who's interested in encouraging reading in class. So, okay. The mental process is something we're going to talk about just now, which is wonderful. Now, we cannot expect our students to read Shakespeare. We cannot expect our students to read Harry Potter, which is why we created graded readers. Reading aloud to students is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And in fact, if we've got time, I would like to read to you later. Now, when I started teaching, we didn't have graded readers. Even today, graded readers don't seem to be available everywhere. A graded reader, any book series of stories where the English level increases and increases, where we control the grammar, control the vocabulary, is essential. Every school must have them for every language, not just English. If I'm studying Chinese, French, Italian, I would want a graded reader. Because, and again, there's lots of research in graded reading. Graded reading extends vocabulary because we control the grammar. It improves the grammar. We have grammar in context. It improves speaking skills. We know that. But it also increases confidence. Students, when they know they can pick up a book at their English level, it improves their confidence. They're not going to struggle. It is, of course, in addition to whatever materials you use in the classroom. More importantly, it encourages learner autonomy, and this is my key thing. Graded readers encourage learner autonomy, and I think that's the goal of every teacher, to encourage our students to enjoy reading. Again, we go back to reading for pleasure. Okay, so this is why we have graded readers. Now, the next thing is what makes a story? Because a lot of textbooks, stories in textbooks, I don't like. I taught for a long time. I've used lots of different textbooks. Most stories in textbooks are terrible. I don't care about the characters. I don't care what happens to them, and that's a problem. Because a good story has to engage the reader or listener emotionally. We have to care about these people. Obviously, beginning, middle, and end. There should always be opposites. There should always be a challenge. It doesn't have to be good or evil. And it's an engagement with fantasy. For students, primary and secondary, we want an engagement with fantasy. And again, one of the most famous writers on the subject is Kieran Egan. And he talks about this. The child, I love this quote, the child is an energetic creator of mental images of what may never have been experiences. Basically, books can take us anywhere. Books can take us anywhere. And that's not limited to native books and to native to L1 books and to L1 learning in school. This can work with students at any level with graded readers. This is why I do what I do and why I'm very happy to talk about it today. Okay. So. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've only got 20 minutes left. Time is flying. I hope everyone's enjoying themselves. I'm going to stop for 1 minute and just quickly say, teachers, how are you feeling? Wonderful. If you're happy, you can tell me. If you're asleep, don't say anything. If you're fine, then you're fine. And everything is good in the world. No, no, no. Okay, good. I thought I would take a quick break. So, the next part, how do we engage students with stories? Well, luckily, I have some examples. So, for younger students, the key is quite simple. We focus on artwork and imagination. Visual literacy. I'm not sure if any of you have studied visual literacy, but there is a specific area of education called visual literacy, which is focusing on bringing the story to life. There's a very important skill for artists as well. Here's a story called The Sick Dragon by two authors. And this is a story about a dragon called Little Red. She's small and she's fast and she loves swimming, playing and flying. Now, this is the way we like to present the material. So this is level D in a 5-level series for primary students. And the story goes a little bit like this. Little Red was a dragon. She was small, fast, and very, very red. When she flew across the sky, she looked like a comet lighting up the forest below. The forest was very big and very dark. Tall trees covered the land as far as you can see. Little Red lived with her family in a mountain deep inside the forest. Would you like to know about Little Red's family? Tough. You have no choice. Very quickly. Her mother was the biggest dragon in the land. When she roared, the mountain shook, and when she breathed fire, the mountain erupted. Her father was the oldest dragon in the land. He was emerald green, and he loved flying high in the sky at night. Her little sister was like Little Red, but smaller and blue. She loved swimming in the rivers and lakes, playing with the fish, and splashing her big sister. Now, the book is called The Sick Dragon. Can you guess what's going to happen to the dragons? Ooh, interesting idea. The Sick Dragon, singular, only one. I am something unfortunate is quite correct. Yeah. Die? No, come on. This is death in children's stories is a very interesting topic, actually. That's a different topic for a different webinar. I'm not going to tell you what happens next. You have to read the story. Now, for secondary students, we change, okay? For secondary readers, we're looking at longer stories. So, here's another story from another well-known author. These stories are normally about 8 to 10,000 words long. They're longer stories, okay? And yes, they can be used for silent reading. They do have activities, but we want students to enjoy these in the end. This is one of my favorite stories, not just because I wrote it. This is a story about Philip, a young boy called Philip. Now again, teenagers, it has to be relevant, it has to be motivating. We are competing with Netflix and YouTube. This is tough. One day, a cat with purple eyes touches Philip with its paw. Philip becomes a cat, and the cat becomes a girl. Philip has to find the girl Who is she? How did she change him into a cat? Who will make him a boy again? And who is trying to steal a cat statue from the museum? I know. It's very exciting. Do please control your excitement, ladies and gentlemen. So we have boys that change into cats, girls that change into cats that change into girls. We have magical statues. Would you like to find out more? You are wonderfully polite. You are my favorite teachers in the world. So, I will do my narrator's voice. The Cat's Paw, episode 1. What was wrong? Philip stopped and looked left then right. He crossed the road and walked along the path by the city park. He was going home. The sun was bright, the sky was blue, and the grass was green. But Philip felt worried. He looked across the street and saw it for the first time. A cat. A cat looking at him. Was it looking at him? No, it couldn't be. It was a very beautiful cat, slim and black with bright purple eyes. Philip walked quickly to the park. It was a nice day, but not for Philip. At the entrance of the park, he saw the boys from school. Oh no, thought Philip. There were 3 of them. They played football every day and really liked to kick the ball at Philip. He stopped, he looked back. The cat was behind him, looking at him with its purple eyes. Philip didn't like it. He walked away without looking and into the biggest boy, Henry. So sorry, Henry, he said quickly and started walking fast. He didn't look back. He ran into the park, around the lake, and jumped over the flowers. He stopped behind a tree. Was Henry following him? Was the cat following him? He opened one eye, then the other. Nothing. Then he heard it, a soft purr. The cat. He wanted to move away, but he didn't. What was it about this cat? It looked at him. Its eyes were very beautiful. He moved closer and closer down to the cat. He felt the cat's paw on his face. Time stopped. Purple eyes looked into Philip's eyes. He couldn't look away. The eyes were bigger and bigger, and he was smaller and smaller. The cat, where was the cat? He looked up and saw a beautiful girl with purple eyes. She was smiling. Why was she smiling? He looked down at his feet, and where were his feet? He saw cat's paws. Philip was a cat. The girl stroked his head. Philip hissed at her. Poor little cat. Don't worry. Everything is perfect. Thank you and bye-bye. End of episode 1. Do you like the story? Or rather, do you think your students would like the story? I'm very happy to hear you say that. If you don't like it, don't tell me. Well, this is the key thing about graded readers. We need to have a range of different story genres for all of our students. Not all of our students are going to enjoy this, which is why we have different types of stories. No time to continue reading today, I'm afraid. We only have 15 minutes left, 13 minutes left, and a couple more things I want to do. I'm glad you enjoyed the story. Next time, I'll just read the whole story for everybody, okay? Okay. I'll give you a few extra things so you can guess what happens in the story. If students like cats, they'll love it. This is Philip when he's a cat and his sister. This is Philip and Violet transforming. Now, one of the dangerous things of transforming from a cat into a boy is that it can happen everywhere. Unfortunately, here in the last picture, we can see that Philip has changed into a boy in the girls' toilets. Very, very embarrassing. And hopefully very funny for students who read this. But of course, no story would be complete without villains. We have a green mamba, a giant snake who is also a very, very angry lady. Anyway, I will not tell you any more about what happens in the story. I've been asked a lot, one of the biggest questions is how do we use graded readers in class? Now, they are split, obviously, into three kinds of activities, the pre-reading, the during, and the post. Now, for pre-reading, it should be pretty simple, okay? I don't like doing too many activities before a story, because hopefully the story, the graded reader, will not require too much. We would just want activities to engage the students and give them enough vocabulary so they can read without stopping. So we can just have a title or a picture or a list of words. We can ask simple questions. We try and avoid saying things like, what can you see? I've seen this lots of times in warm-ups. What can you see? That's a big question. It's not a very useful question because it requires the students to use a whole, there's no limit to the answer. Whereas if we control the students' output, how many boys can you see? How many animals can you see? Then the students only have to say numbers, much easier. Now we can scaffold the task. How does the boy feel? Okay, what's the old lady thinking? Be creative. We can be funny. What's the dog thinking? Okay. These are all the different things that we can do. For during, once we've read or in the middle of reading, we don't need any tasks. We don't really want to pause students. We want students to get into the reading flow, which means they have to be in the right environment. It should be a comfortable, quiet environment. The teacher can read out loud at the beginning. We can have vocabulary on the board, the glossed vocabulary, with a translation. Okay? Anything that improves the students' reading flow. That's the goal. Post-reading, again, I'm not a big fan of post-reading activities. If students enjoy it, they will talk about it. If you want to stage it with staged activities about which character you like and didn't like and why, what do you want to happen next, that's all fine. If you want to act out scenes or do some translation activities, which is quite fun, then you can do that. But again, the goal is about reading for pleasure. That's what we want more than anything. So, the link. Now, remember everything. We've been through a lot. We've been through a lot of information in the last 50 minutes. And all of that information, I hope, is to encourage you to do simple activities in class, if you use graded readers or not. The most important part of any class is the warm-up. And I've seen warm-ups are the missed trick, one of the missed tricks. Warm-ups are so easy to no longer be a warm-up. If a teacher comes into class and says, good afternoon, turn to page 5, students are bored already. If you walk into class and say, good morning, what did you do yesterday? For me, that's too much pressure. Warm-ups need to be these things. They have to be indirectly focused on the language for class, okay? Indirectly focused. So we kind of practice without realizing we're practicing. We want simple media, pictures, puzzles, words, or sounds. Simple receptive tasks, okay? We don't want students to produce anything in the beginning, except yes or no. And we want different skills. We control what the students say. Okay? Again, so questions like what can you see is an uncontrolled output. We want controlled input and controlled output, receptive and productive skills. And there should always be an opportunity for creativity. Now, I will tell you, I'll give you a second to read that, and then I'll give you an example of some of my favorite warm-ups and how they go together, how they link with creative storytelling in class. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, very simple activity. By the way, I apologize right now for my pronunciation. I especially apologize to my colleagues from any of these countries. So, listen, read, and tell me, what's the language? Come ti chiami? Mi chiamo Elisabetta. Italiano, sì. Excellent, easy, beautiful. Comment tu t'appelles? Je m'appelle Thierry. Français, French, excellent. Perfect French, I don't think so. But you're very kind. Как тебя зовут? Меня зовут Иван. Russian, да. Okay. Russian is correct. And finally, 你叫什么名字？我叫白文龙。你叫什么名字？我叫白文龙。Exactly. This is Mandarin Chinese. Mandarin Chinese. Yes. Thank you very much. Chinese is my second language. So, can you translate for me, please? Can you translate for me? Translate these 4 sentences for me. Excellent. Amazing. ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo Gavino. Yes, what's your name? My name is. What's your name? My name's Elizabeth. What's your name? My name's Terry. What's your name? My name's Ivan. What's your name? My name's Bai Wen Long. I don't expect you to read the Bai Wen Long name. Bai Wen Long is actually my Chinese name. I lived in China for over 10 years, and Bai Wen Long is my Chinese name. So, okay, that's incredible. So every 190 people are here, and we can all speak 4 languages. That's incredible. At least 4 languages. I only speak 2 languages, English and Chinese. Although I understand Spanish and French and German a bit. Don't test me. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying. We're just having a chat now, aren't we? Which is why the best warm-ups in the world do become a chat with your class, which is what we're doing right now. So, come on, there we go. What's the best food? What's the best food in these countries? The best food in Italy. I have to be careful here. Pizza, pasta, lasagna. I don't know why I'm saying it with an Italian accent. I'm very sorry. Ice cream, tortellini, lasagna, meatballs, prosciutto. Okay, what's the best food in France? Baguettes. Poor France. Croissant, crepe, coq au vin. Ratatouille, also a very good film. Cheese and chocolate. Okay, what about Russia? Vodka. Ice. Goulash, vodka, bush. Okay, China. Right, the best food in China is rice. Noodles, okay. Duck. I knew somebody was going to say bats. I will pretend we can't say bats. We get in trouble. This is a serious educational webinar. Now we can come up with new countries. Okay, now we can come up with new countries. And this is the point in class where I would hand over to the students. The students would then say different countries. Other students would come up with food. Okay, so do you see what the teacher controls the activity, and then by staging, by scaffolding the activity, now the students control the activity. Yeah, this is what we want. This is exactly what we want in a warm-up. Okay, a staged path where the students can control the activity. Now we can start creating like a dialogue. Okay, and I can support the students' dialogue. I can put this on the board. I will put the students into pairs. I'll say, okay, blue and red. Okay, go around the class, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red. Blue students, hello. Red student, hi, how are you? Blue student, I'm. What's your name? My name is. Where do you live? I live in. What's the best food in the world? The best food in the world is. Okay, so now we have a model, a simple model for a creative activity. Okay, now the first 3 questions, nice and standard. Now we can be creative. but we've already supported students. We've supported students on countries and food indirectly. Okay, we've indirectly tested them on food language. So we've warmed up their language, the language center of their brain. Now this is the clever part, okay? This is where the different skills come into play. The students are practicing a dialogue. I start taking away sentences. I take these away. Now the students have to remember what was on the board. This is how we turn a basic warm-up or a basic pair work dialogue into a skilled activity. Clever, huh? I'm sure other teachers do this already, but this is one of my favorite activities. And from that, you know, we can go into the normal class, focusing on the grammar or vocabulary, hopefully food vocabulary in your textbook unit. And at the end, we can create a story with very simple language. So here's my simple food story. My name is Tom. I live in Cambridge. I love food. The best food in the world is fish and chips. Yesterday I went to the fish and chip shop. The man in the shop said, "We don't have any fish." "Oh no," I said. "But we have lots of chips," said the man. Yesterday I ate a lot of chips. There we go. This is a simple creative story that when you phrase it, when you scaffold it correctly, all the activity stages beforehand, students can create anything they want, which I think is wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry to say we are out of time. We are out of time. Now, please don't be too upset. I'm sorry that I have to leave you. My final thoughts for today are these. In my experience, the best teachers in the world are free thinkers who have learned to love to learn. This is important. We have to relearn our love of learning because school often takes it away from us. We're passionate about helping others. We understand the system we work in and the reality of our students' lives. Final thoughts are these. Going back to the garden myth and kind of why we're here. I don't think that we are heroes. I don't think that we always make a difference. I don't think that we are gardeners or professors or masters of education. But we can share a love of learning to our students through stories, and that is enough. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this webinar. I hope that was useful.